Hello,
No
wonderful
problem.
people.
Hello.
This is the Vanguard second time on Olay and Chill, but it's Francesca's first.
Yeah, what the hell?
I honestly, I really realized just the other day, I was like, you know what? I have a bunch of people that I love and whose channels I've been on, but I haven't been collaborating with because I don't be doing nothing. And I was like, email Francesca. I was like,
Hi.
and you, first of all, you have been killing it. I know right now, and we will talk about like TYT foolishness, but I just want to say, aside from that, your commentary has been
you.
excellent. I love your Zateo show. I love what's happening in the Bituation Room, and I want people to go follow you on there. So I should say that
Appreciate
first.
it, Olay. We are always on our on our lips is like a. I think we've actually reached out through multiple shows, through all my shows, to have you on. So it's great to be on your show for the first time.
Sis. Okay, so now, how are you, and how is this foolishness that you are dealing with? Because I must say, I'm both shocked and not shocked. Like when I first saw you start like expressing your real opinion about how they were giving it up on the network, I said, okay. I was like, we'll see how long this lasts. But then when I saw what they actually did about it, I said, oh, this is outlandish. You made a whole video coming for Francesca's neck in particular.
Yeah.
And that was crazy to me. That was crazy. And it's the most recent thing on a long list of crazy shit TYT's been doing. But I did think it was kind of a poetic culmination, because all of this is because you're so angry that people are pointing out the obvious, that you want to roll out the red carpet and handle the entire, you are handling white supremacists with kitty gloves. Like, oh, we need to break bread. We need to be nice. We need to stop calling people out. But like the people on the left that are your homeboys, like these are your homies, and you're like, oh, fuck them. Like, absolutely fuck them. Let me make a video letting you know why. Fuck her. Like,
Yep.
and what he said, every show, you know how petty you gotta be to reach out to everybody in the TYT network? Like, not you either. She can't go there either. It's crazy.
I know. And I'm going to miss going on, obviously, John's show, Dr. Richie's show. I really love Indisputable, and I really love the Damage Report. And, the Vanguard boys know, we talked about it on their show. But I really feel, look, what you saw was the tail end, honestly, of months and months and months of real rage, anger, inability to sleep, honestly. And yes, definitely feeling implicated as someone who contributes to TYT. And I have run cover for them a lot before, right? And I have had private conversations trying to have real people in, i.e. Anna. I had private conversations with Cenk before I invited him on my show to actually have a debate, which, kudos to him. He actually went through with it. And I gave him a piece of my mind, but I knew, like I told these guys, I knew that was the beginning of the end. But I have been trying, speaking of kid gloves, I've really been trying to deal with kid gloves with Cenk and Anna for a long time now. And at a certain point, you kind of got to let go. And at a certain point, when you try to call in and you're calling in and I'm calling you in, and I'm calling you in, but they're not calling anyone else in, and they're going on Glenn Beck, or they're going on, Patrick Bet-David's show, or they're going on Tim Pool, and they're going on these places. And like I say, they go with an offering. And the offering is, look at these crazy lefties.
Yep.
Here's my offering. And if I sacrifice these crazy lefties who, believe in things like moving money out of police departments into public safety, then you will like me and I can get on your level. And what's that going to get me? Nothing. So, Olay, you've gone hard in the past. And I also have seen you be so empathetic, honestly, and kind of at the end of it be like, man, I kind of feel for Anna, right? Or I feel for Cenk, but you were coming at this from someone. The reason I appreciate your commentary is because you come at it from someone who doesn't owe them anything. You know what I mean? And not even like, I'm someone, I don't owe them because I think our relationship was mutual. I had a journalistic career, a pundit career before them. I helped them. They helped me. I, drove traffic and views, and you can see that. But I was, again, trying to say, look, I respect you. I want to be able to have this conversation privately. When the birthing person thing with Anna happened, I was like, look, don't go down Chappelle's road. Don't burn your legacy, over this thing. Seems a little weird. And she heard that and she backed off. But it was so funny because you were one of the only people who was like, I don't really owe anybody anything. I'm just going to call it what it is. I know we're all kind of pretending. And then these guys, Zach and Gavin have also done the same. And I think that's what happens when it's like, look, we're just kind of calling the balls and strikes here. We're calling it like we see it. We don't owe people anything. And what comes out is a lot of truth. And I think that's why people like both of y'all and hopefully me as well.
Yeah.
Ye-
Well, I think it's also interesting to point out that, like, I was a big fan of TYT. It's not like I come at this as someone who's just, dropping in out of nowhere to comment completely without the context or having ever been a fan. No, I watched the network seriously decline from its heyday. And I think what's so wild about this most recent episode that obviously resulted in you getting banned, not just from TYT, but from the damage report, Francesca, is I think that they had a real option with what you were presenting and the things that you were saying to actually take TYT back to one of the things that made it so great in the first place in its golden era, which was a lively discourse, a lively
Yeah.
debate that occurred on the main panel show every night. I mentioned this when we chatted also, Francesca, but back in the day, in 2015 when like Bernie Sanders was first running, one thing I really enjoyed was tuning in and hearing like, Cenk and Jimmy Dore and Anna Kasparian all going at it and, kind of fighting. And, it's crazy to think of them all being friends, but it really did feel like a family back then. And obviously there were other people around too, John Iadarola being one of them, and yourself, right? But people would get in passionate arguments, and it really felt like you could tune in and watch people who all respected each other have intense discussions. And that's all that you were trying to do, quite frankly, in this most recent stage of TYT's ideological evolution. You had a little bit of pushback, just like Jimmy and Cenk used to push back on each other, just like Anna and Cenk used to push back and continue to push back on each other sometimes when they disagree. That's all you were offering, and they could have leaned into that. It would have made for a much more entertaining product ultimately than whatever the hell is going on now. You tune in, the vibes are miserable. You can tell that there's behind the scenes strife that's affecting the on-screen presentation of the product. The vibes have, putrefied in front of all of us. It's just not the same. And I think they could have, if it weren't for their pettiness and it weren't for their egos, they could have taken your challenge and said, hell yeah, let's actually do this. Let's have a fun, explosive, intense at times discussion where we not just hash out the birthing person thing, but every issue we disagree on. That's compelling content.
I mean, Olay had a great debate, I thought. I mean,
Oh
with
yeah.
them a couple years ago around policing, and I mean, I am like, that is robust. That's good conversation. Even, I mean, if you want to be real about it, like, I'm a contractor. Like, I never had a show. It's really weird to do a really long segment about me. But when I did float them, discussions and debates between me and John and Anna and Cenk, there's also someone named Dr. Richie who is on their network. There's also J.R. Jackson, but Dr. Richie specifically, all he covers is like police acting crazy and racist in the streets, and it's good. And also Karen's going nuts, and he is someone who's openly talked about like, how can we get a leash on these cops, honestly.
Yeah.
And even inviting Dr. Richie to maybe like hash out certain issues, you're not even seeing that kind of crossover. Meanwhile, they're making lots of money off of Indisputable. It gets consistently, there's over 1 million subscribers. It consistently gets like in the hundreds of thousands. I think their videos might even do better than the main channel's
They do.
video.
Actually, they
Right.
do.
So that's just another kind of like glaring oversight. Okay, so you don't actually really believe, I don't really understand I don't think you know about like real racial justice struggles, maybe like, what all this, whatever, what the Black Lives Matter movement was even about, but you're going to make money off of.
I heard they put Black Lives Matter on the map with their coverage.
Right.
Did you hear
You
Cenk
let
say
them
that?
tell it. You're right, Francesca, honestly, that I've tried to, every time I talk about TYT, honestly, in the last year or so, I always start by trying to be like, let me show you where I like feel, I can understand where one could grow frustrated, right? Because I never want to be a hypocrite. Like, as somebody who is a creator and who recognizes how it feels when a bunch of people are shitting on you and talking about you and stuff, I want to be sensitive to that. Even though Anna and Cenk are people who are like notoriously not sensitive to me in particular, and it's always funny because I feel like I handle them the nicest, but whenever they talk about me, that's when they feel feel like they could get really, because I think Cenk just called me stupid out the blue the other day on Twitter, and I find it funny just because, what is it, 2 years ago now, and I think I said, this would they very obviously were getting ready to do a grift. It seemed very clear to me, and I actually think I'll say what I think either I was wrong about or is just worse than I thought it would be, because to some level I didn't think they were like right wing or that they believed a lot of the things that they were saying. I thought it was very obvious that they know that there is a formula and how to move over to the right or what they thought would earn them more dollars. I think 2 years with like perspective now. I think they do believe a lot of the right wing. I think they very much so passionately hold a lot of these right wing views. I do still think it was a deliberate, and it continues to be a deliberate effort to try to hone in on right wing money that they know they can't earn by just being on the right. They want to be the leftists who shit on the left. Like, I can hang out here. It's like they want to be the woman in the room that is with all the men that are like, oh, all these bitches are this, that, but not you. You know what I mean? That's what they want to be
Right.
like.
Cool girl.
I'm
Yes,
the
they wanna
sensible
be the
leftist,
cool
and their
girl.
version of a sensible leftist is a right wing centrist.
Totally. And it's fine to be a centrist, but you got to just own up to the fact that you're a centrist. And I will just say there's like been a couple moments where I knew that their coverage has been, there's been massive blind spots. So I've always bristled at the idea that it's for money. Because
Yeah.
I actually do think that they deeply believe the things that they're talking about. Like, I do deeply think that Anna, it has a right-wing framing on like the housing crisis and homelessness, just
Yeah.
number one, just by virtue on who she talks about, how she talks about it. Same with immigration. Cenk said to my face, he told me, look, I don't have a problem. This is in the lame duck Biden's moment, but before Trump assumes office, when we knew all of the stuff that we're seeing now was 100% going to play out. He told me, well, I don't have a problem as long as they just target the criminals and the gangsters.
Oh,
Like,
that
he
don't
can't.
shock me at all. I
It's
remember
like,
my conversation with him about bail and the criminal system.
right,
Okay, my mans don't even believe in cash bail.
right, exactly. It's like, what do you think that they're doing now? ICE has said, I remember when ICE wanted to defund ICE in the first Trump administration, they were like, look, we can't actually go after criminals because nobody will talk to us because they think we're just rounding up anybody. So
Yeah.
let's focus. And we're just forgetting that happened. And look what's happening. Innocent people being deported. Then another thing, this is a moment, I forgot to tell the Vanguard guys about it, but there was a moment when I was hosting with Cenk a few years ago during BLM, but at the tail end of BLM, the most recent uprising. And it's always finding the outlier stories that they really like. So this was an issue where a mentally unwell man was in his bathroom having an episode, and the cops were talking to him, trying to negotiate him. He had a gun, trying to negotiate with him to come out of the bathroom for like 30, some really long amount of time, right? He shoots through the bathroom. It, I believe, hits a neighbor, right? And then, or doesn't hit anybody. It doesn't kill anybody, but he shoots. Then he is killed by the cops. And the people in the streets, BLM folks in the local community, I can't remember where it was, they took the streets and they were like, Black Lives Matter, what are you doing? Why'd you just kill this man? He's having a mental episode. Yes, he was armed, but you were on the precipice of talking him down, blah, blah, blah. Cenk was obsessed with doing this story because he wanted to focus on the neighbor who was like, I felt unsafe because this guy had a gun. And that was really precious to him because it was like, see, BLM, you're kind of stupid. You activists in the street who were saying that guy shouldn't have been killed. But, and so it was like how we focus on which stories and having these outlier cases to disprove the movement and to show how the movement's stupid is really precious to people like Cenk and sadly Anna.
Because they're not. Here's my thing, and it's funny because I feel like something I think is true about the leftist internet space, right? I think the leftist internet space has like a white tint to it that is interesting because like actual like traditional leftism and on the streets and organizers is very black, but on the internet there's always this willingness. I feel like certain figures are propelled to the front, and there's always this willingness to excuse glaring prejudices. And everything that I've seen from Cenk and Anna from the moment that they have come into like my arena is prejudice when it comes to Black people, marginalized people, immigrants, all this. And I always find it interesting how willing people are to overlook their like obvious racism in exchange for, oh, they're progressives because these other things, as though like these are not disqualifying factors. And I think that was clear with even when you saw when Anna went on her little anti-left, not even the most recent, like I've left the left, her original anti-left press run when people first started criticizing over a birthing person, and she was in her whole like framing it like she had a beef with me. What she was saying on a lot of those shows, she was talking about how she doesn't like to talk to Black people. I don't like to talk to Black people, or I don't feel comfortable with Black people.
Remember that. She
Outright
did that on
saying,
Stage and Adam.
you don't no, Francesca, the reason you don't remember it is because despite the fact that she could say something like that outright, the left didn't give a fuck. Like this white internet left that is talking about it, that's not something they find worth criticizing her for. Racism is cool. Like this other stuff, everyone's like, oh my gosh, yeah. But that's been clear. And if you hear what they say about Black people, even their own personal interactions with somebody, if you think someone who's in like the year 2023 telling us they don't like to talk to Black people and Black people make them uncomfortable and basically making it out to be a hostile environment, like I can't speak or Black people are this, that, that. By the way, when they exist in a space where they could count, Black people are like flies in the milk, right? Like she's saying, oh, me, she has a problem with me in comparison to a million white creators that are criticizing her, right? And if you hear how they talk about just their own personal interactions with Black people, what would make us think they're talking about that? They're talking like that about Black people that are in the same space as them, that are like their colleagues, are supposed to be their peers. How do you think they feel about poor Black people and working class Black people and who they're deeming the immigrants and the homeless and the criminals? And they say as much. When I was talking to Cenk was spitting back at me what is sure-fired propaganda, like literalized. I'm like, I am an attorney in this city. That is not how fucking the law works. People are not committing crime, getting out the next day and committing more crime, and they can't be jailed and all of this. And they didn't want to hear it. And their response was what he said to me then when he started turning up was, you know, we have been some of the greatest champions of criminal justice and all of this, blah, 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 the Young Turks. And that's pretty much their attitude. They act like 2009 Kanye. Which is dead ass they do. Like every time I hear Cenk and Anna, it's this very like, I am king. I have opened the door for you peasants and y'all should all be bowing down to me. And I think that's clear just in how they went about dealing with you, because there's no reason, even if they decided that, oh, I don't want her on my network anymore, I'm mad for this reason. There's a big jump between that and let me get in front of the camera, let me make and produce a video so that I could put it on. And I want to put this person on blast because there's a suggestion that they want to end you in their mind. If they had it their way, they don't want people watching you. They want to tarnish your reputation, which is interesting, right? Like they running up there
to copyright strike us too. They threatened to freaking sue us or copyright strike us out of existence for.
I'm surprised they haven't.
Members only content or whatever.
I'd have had to copyright strike y'all. I'd have had to do it.
They don't want to have
had to get y'all. You're enjoying it too much. I would have had to get you.
I will say one thing that's kind of crazy in Olay. Like you say, you know, ever since TYT has entered your space or whatever, you've only seen this bigotry or prejudice or whatever. But I think what's so crazy about this to a lot of people, and why some people even on the left like have struggled to grapple with it, is because it wasn't that long ago that Anna and Cenk, but specifically Anna, was like full SJW mode. Like back in 2016, 2017, like she was full on like BuzzFeed feminist, like woke, you know, whatever. I remember there was a TYT segment about how like the Harambe memes were racist that a bunch of people made fun of because it was like too woke, and they were like, come on guys, like people are just having fun. This isn't like what. Okay, well maybe there was
I knew a bunch of racist ass niggas in law school who were giving it up wild off that Harambe shit.
Okay, well, my point is they were like the opposite, and then for Anna to turn and go so bitter and so, you know, culminating in that comment that you referenced where she was like, yeah, I don't even, you know, feel comfortable talking to Black people or people that aren't white because I feel like they're going to jump down my throat if I say the wrong thing, which is crazy because if you say the wrong thing, you can just apologize. I mean, she's admitting there that she's actually terrified of having to apologize and admit that she was wrong to someone.
It also suggests that Black people are her antagonists, which isn't true.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that the problem, and that's what I said from the beginning when she originally decided to single me out of a sea of people talking about her, and I was like the most aside, like we're not even talking about you because I'm on this white people show and all of them are talking about you and I'm seated here, you know what I mean? But I said that then it's like this need to go. That's how I knew it was a right-wing pivot. This need to go on to these right-wing shows and frame it like this radical Black left, like the left is represented by these Black people who are jumping down your throat, and meanwhile. Is that the case? Like, look at y'all, pale as ghosts on their ass 24/7, Zach.
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, one. Oh no, Zach, please. You haven't said much.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that my analysis of Cenk and Anna is that I think that they were really just clout chasing the entire Bernie era. I don't see a lot of legitimate progressive values there, but what it was the fucking gold mine, California gold rush of YouTube. If you were starting up, Gavin and I used to fucking lay up at night, get a little stoned and be like, God, could you imagine if we started our channel in 2015, bro? Like channels that were not very capable were just blowing up out of control because people were desperate to hear anybody talk about Bernie Sanders. And of course, there were really good content creators that were really riding that wave at a time, but it was a total cash grab. That's why they don't talk about, Gavin just pointed out the other day on air, they don't even call themselves the home of progressives half the time anymore. And what you see is that Cenk really just wanted to grow his platform. You know, Sam Cedar was mentioning that he wanted to be on in airports. And if you look at his trajectory like that, It really makes sense. So he goes from being a Republican, which is when you're young, if you're 25 and you fucking hate, people who are different than you, probably that's going to be in you when you're 45 too. Like, it's just very difficult for me to believe that you had an altruistic evolution at that age. Maybe you did, and God bless you if that happened, but maybe you saw a lane for yourselves. And instead of having you and this 19-year-old chick that you hired, no offense, Anna, talk about like, oh, this is how chicken nuggets are made, and this is a woman that got mauled by a chimpanzee, which are the two highest viewed videos in TYT history from before they decided to be progressive. Then in 2016, they're blowing up out of control. Cenk's mind says, I am going to go take a venture capital fundraising round and raise over $20 million from West Coast elites, as I'm constantly looking at the camera and telling my audience we need to get big money out of politics. We need to get big money out of media. I'm trying to promote independent media companies, but really I'm just skimming 20% off the top of them like a mafia boss, which Sam Cedar also revealed. They weren't doing anything to promote their network of shows. They were allowing them to pay them money to optimize their content. That's totally not what they were presenting to the public. Then they get Joe Sandberg to do a cash infusion and convince their audience that there's a way to do progressive banking. That guy just went down for a $100 million fraud in California, and they did zero coverage of it on their network. Then they go out and in a very critical election to stave off fascism in the United States. We're not talking about Mitt Romney or Paul Ryan. We're talking about Donald Trump times 2. They say, we're going to get in bed with Peter Thiel and Polymarket, a crypto gambling service that's illegal in the United States, where you run your freaking company and you're going to sell the naming rights of the People Studio, which you
Don't forget, run for
fundraised.
president.
Run for president, run for Congress and fail. They had a studio that they got built with $400,000 in small dollar donations when they were at that same time taking venture capital money. Could you believe the con that they had to do to those people to then turn around and be like, we're going to name it the Polymarket Studios? People really believed that TYT was a home for progressive change. So Gavin and I just view them as a corporate news network that completely sold their audience down the river. And that's why we make a living lampooning.
First of all, that is an amazing rant, and it's why I love the Vanguard. And I thank you for bringing our attention to aspiration. The founder was found guilty of fraud, and that should be covered. I mean, if they're going to be honest, I don't think it's a problem to take money from, certain outlets, but like be upfront, be transparent about it, especially when they're going down or they're wanted for fraud. Like, it's not a good look on you. But here's what I'll say. I don't love the making fun of TYT's early days for doing pop culture stuff. I think that's good. I think it's due diligence.
It is good. Yeah.
I think it's due diligence to do pop culture. It's fine. Yeah, okay. Some of the stuff could be maybe salacious and misogynistic, whatever. But like, I'm not gonna like ream them over that.
Sure.
But it is interesting to see like who are they at their heart. And I think Cenk, and I say this, he's probably gonna see this because Hank's gonna clip it. It's gonna be a whole thing.
Shout out to Hank.
I say this with like also some care. Cenk is fairly delusional. And I just want to like make sure everyone kind of knows that. And just another story that I have, because again, anyone who's built what he's built, I have some admiration for. Anyone who, recently, one of the last private conversations we had was about going on Piers Morgan. I had a bad performance once and I was like, man, should I keep going on this? He was like, yes, you got to do it. So, we've had conversations that have been cordial. I respect the guy. And when I didn't respect him, I made sure, guys, I never tweeted at him. I never made videos about him. I never said shit about shit. Until I said, come on my show, we'll have it out. And then from there, yes, I clipped up that video. Yes, I then made a short video that kind of mocked how he was wrong.
You said his brain was broken? Come on.
Yes, I did say his brain was broken.
Offensive.
But I do think, look, my brain was broken after the 2024 election, but I'm not to the point where I'm going right. But one of the times that he was running for Congress, second time he ran for Congress, was... No, yeah. Whatever the time he ran for Congress when the impeachment was going on.
Oh, Christy Smith, yeah.
So he was like literally said to me with a straight face, he goes, can you imagine? I win and they ask me to present the articles of impeachment to Donald Trump. That's gonna just like, can you like that? And I was just like, wow, yeah, like a child, like I'm saying, like, dude really thought he was not only going to win the election, but in his like, you got to go into Congress and you got to just crush everybody and make no friends and go in there and you got to fight. And I hate AOC and how dare you straight deals and how dare you. Like, you know, his whole attitude about how you're supposed to be in Congress is basically make no friends, get nothing done.
Yeah,
And
all he
they were going to be like,
cozy up to
But
people.
at least he
Right.
was passionate about that. Like, I don't even sense that level of energy or
no,
excitement.
but if it's, but no, because make sure you know that when he's talking about anyone on the left,
Yes.
he has so much passion and anger. What I'm saying is like
bitterness,
that
yeah.
they were going to be like, oh yeah, you should definitely present the articles of impeachment, Mr. Uygur, now that you've won your it's just like so much delusion. There's
He
so
got
much delusion there.
6% of the vote in that race, everyone, for posterity. He got 6% of the vote. It was not competitive.
Yeah. But I do think that he has like a childlike or he did have a childlike excitement that you kind of just referenced there that I have seen totally evaporate. And I feel like that's a big part of the reason why the show has completely gone downhill too. It's just that vibe, right? That exciting energy that used to make the show fun. Even in that era when the cracks were already starting to emerge, it did feel like more of a fun, journey you were on with the host, with the ideology, like this progressive mission. And now it just seems like, Cenk left all that behind. He threw it all under the bus, everything that he stood for not that long ago. Like it really wasn't that long ago that he was calling out Jimmy Dore for doing exactly the same thing that he is now doing. Jimmy was going on Tucker Carlson and giving softball, interviews in the same way that Cenk is now doing that with Dr. Phil and Charlie Kirk and all this stuff. And he's just completely unaware of the blatant hypocrisy that comes out of his mouth every time he defends himself.
Yeah.
I think he doesn't care. Honestly, to me, like as it pertains to the hypocrisy, I think he doesn't care. He has to see and know they at the very least, we know that they are locked into all the criticisms that are being made of them. So they've heard it, they know they don't care. And it's two things that I guess I find interesting. Whenever I hear like people talk about what Cenk's previous like political beliefs are, this is somebody who's a Republican, whatever have you, it makes me think of something that's happening today right now on the internet. On Threads, there's this big controversy because you see Cory Booker did his 24-hour thing, and then some white person who loves himself an ally and a progressive.
I think I saw
comes by.
this.
You see, look,
Yeah.
okay, well, he said he's selling a candle with Cory Booker on it, and so people were like, "Hey, no, like, don't go and profit off of Black people's labor. Like, don't go. That's not the way to do it, or whatever." And he was like, "What? I'm an ally. Don't tell me this or whatever." Yada yada. And then this other person comes in really trying to defend them. Is what is a big platform called Camp Call Out, which is a person who's calls himself ex-MAGA. They were ex-MAGA like last year. They were doing interviews on they were a member of like groomers against the LGBT people
Oh,
against
boy.
you know what I mean?
Gays
LGBT
against
grooming and stuff, like
groomers.
real right-wing supremacy type shit. And but now this person calls himself Camp Call Out, and they're calling out all the right-wing people, and they're like, oh, this big progressive person. And I think there's a parallel between that and the Cenk thing. The way non-Black people are allowed to have reprehensible like views, schools of thought, ideologies, and then they just tell you they've left them. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I have a new position. You know what I mean? I'm newly this, and they immediately take a position as the head of something. Like, I'm not just progressive now. This is the fucking home of progressives, nigga. Like, I built it, I champion, I am the guy. You know what I mean? And I think there's something to that, because every time I see Anna and Cenk's like political views flipping all over the place, but also seeing like evidence of maybe like them always having had certain views, some changing. I think what that is I think that's illustrative of people who got into a line of work, you know what I mean? And they feel maybe some things, you know what I mean? And they're riding with the waves and the times, and those things are changed. And if you don't have a concrete, like, this is my school of thought I passionately believe in, contradictions will arise, especially as you start being personally invested one way or the next. I also think, and I've always thought this, I think there's a check somewhere involved for Cenk and them. That's clear to me, because even just as a creator brain, this hasn't been going well for them. I think by art, like, I don't really think there's any metric that you could say they have been getting the kind of benefits that we can see. Like, if like we're not seeing their viewers increase because they're doing this right-wing pivot. We're not seeing the right embrace them or championing them or somehow like coming over to their channel. You're seeing like them end up severing all the relationships with everybody on the left. You're seeing their numbers suffer. You're seeing all these declines, and it leads me to believe and that they're not. If you're willing to go over and to go talk to right-wing supremacists, and I know you're somebody that likes debate and that kind of content, and if you were chasing views, even if you couldn't stand these people like you're working with, who are you, or you call them the far left now, you would be willing to make that content with them. You would have that debate. You would do these things that you apparently see is so necessary that you do it on the right. You see it as essential that you talk to them, that you have these debates and all this different stuff. So you would do it even as a creator, like even if you weren't principled, like principally a part of
Totally.
it.
For the well, and they and Olay, notice when they do that.
Yeah.
When they do say this is going to do well because of the clicks, is when they want to platform a genocidal psycho like Ben Glebe. And I'm sorry, Ben, but like you gone off the deep end, buddy. And it was one of the many people he's only tripled down on. And Cenk will have Ben on for a whole hour to basically shill out Hezbollah talking points from the Israeli regime. And it's like, oh, this is great. Isn't this wonderful? Yeah. Do this every 2 weeks. But with, defunding the police. Do this every 2 weeks with trans people. Do this every 2 weeks with someone to make the case for unhoused people and for like actual housing reform. Do this with any of the things. But again, to Olay's point about the internet, I also, in my talk with Anna around the birthing person stuff, and I think with Cenk to a lesser extent, it's always been like, look, the internet, the people on X or Twitter, they're not real. Like they're real, but they're not, they're obnoxious. Everyone knows they're obnoxious. We're all obnoxious. It's not real people. That is not the left, to Ole's first point. That's not people who are organizing. That's not people who are in the streets. Those people don't have time. That's not people who are helping fundraise for the organization, whatever it is. Like they're not on here doing that. So don't confuse someone who might get mad at you for a small little, what they perceive as a transgression, with this broader left. But they're so internet pilled that they can't distinguish between those two things, and they actually don't really care to platform real activists and movement folks. And here's my other point about that. To Cenk's credit, he is a movement person. Now, he's always wanted to be the head of movements, whether it was Justice Democrats or Wolfpack or whatever it is, but he at least tries. Even running for office, to his credit, he's tried to make a real world impact beyond, the network itself. So I will give him credit. Anna, meanwhile, openly is like, I'm not an activist and I don't like activism, basically. And so interestingly, they are very different. And so again, if I had Anna on my show, which she agreed to, but then obviously is not going to do it, I would have really wanted to ask, do you believe in social movement organizing? Do you believe in activism? Do you believe in,
No.
like that has an impact on our country, on our democracy? What do you think the mechanism of change is, if you want to do even the slim things that we might agree on? Corporations out of politics. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is the mechanism of change? And I think, final thought before I shut up, they are also so internet pilled, and let me explain this. When you're online and you chase clicks for as long as you do, you know one thing: contrarianism sells. You've got to say the unexpected thing. Cenk always will say, and Gavin, you know this, he'll always be like, and coming up next, an unexpected opinion from me, different take you might not have thought. I'm going to say something you might not like. And it's like, ooh. And that's the moment that's the clicks. That's okay. I'm going to throw blank under the bus. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to have an unconventional thought. And finally, to Ole's point about like, is it the money, or because we know this is not good for them? No, they've also been told, Cenk sort of instills this. It's like, whatever you feel, that little thing in there that's like, ooh, birthing person bad, you got to exploit that. But you know what that id is also? That id is racist as fuck sometimes. We all have that, but that id wants to say some shit. I mean, mine's not racist, but you know what I'm saying?
Brain, yeah.
We want to, it's like paying attention to the most base little like voice. And that is what is at the heart of every boomer's anti-woke, little midlife crisis, is like, why can't I say the thing? And like, but they've been told to exploit that feeling and go with that feeling and ride it into the ground. And that's just like, it's so internet. You know what I mean?
I think the weird thing, though, is, and as we've talked about already on this episode, and also as Zach loves to bring up constantly, it's like Cenk could have leaned even more, though, into exploiting these arguments and discussions, almost in a Piers Morgan way. And you brought that up, too. He's like, okay, you have the Ben Glebe conversations. As much as I find the guy distasteful, it is spicy content. It is very intense. It's hard to look away from, right? So
who he is.
TYT could have, transitioned into that style of a thing where it's like, all right, this week we're having a really intense, spicy debate about Israel. The next week we're having Francesca on to have a really spicy debate about.
And they don't want that. Like,
Right,
and I think that's the thing to their real viewpoint. Like, it's very clear that the reason they don't want to platform leftist views, like that's really what it is. And I think that's kind of been clear for years. Like even when I first went on TYT, it was very specific. And again, I've said this, I've shot Anna this bail and I'll continue to give it to her. I understand not wanting to work with people or not wanting to collaborate or platform people you don't like. I don't think that's crazy or unreasonable, right? But that was their position. Even with their position to me was like, I was basically abolition is stupid, bail reform is stupid. These are fucking criminals. They don't deserve any rights. We all feel danger. We all feel scared, and so we should just double down on policing. And they hated how the radical left talked to them about it. But I was nice enough in how I like presented it to them or whatever. So they were like, okay, you were the only person. I was said, but they said to me, you didn't disrespect me, so you can come on. You know what I mean? And so I've always known they conduct their like that's their process for whether or not people get on there, and I'm not mad at that. Niggas I don't like don't come on Illuminati either. I just don't announce it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I think there's a difference on arrogance, on like their need to like let it be known who they don't like in the leftist spaces. If they think they're the king and queens that can essentially exile or decide who is the left. And every time they do it and the left doesn't respond to them that way, doesn't get rid of these people, I think that increases their rage. But I think the reason why they're not doing the debates and making what could obviously be great content is they know, we all know that when you bring up right-wing stupidness, all these straw men, you get what those people got talking to Sam Cedar on Jubilee. You get ate up, you get embarrassed. And that's not what they want, because I truly believe that there is a right-wing check that says, get those motherfuckers out of there. Like, I truly, truly think that.
Yeah,
I think you think they are maybe smarter than they actually are. That's what I think is sad.
I don't want to call these people dumb.
No, I'm just saying, I think it's sad because I don't actually think there's a check. And I say that with, again, I just don't think there is.
I believe you, and that's scary.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Governor.
Oh no, you're good, bro.
But the thing about the rebrand that I think is also like worth noting, that the one thing that would convince me that I think there was a check, right? And I think that's maybe what it was. Like, I think that big money that they got in that 2017, 2018 era, and for people who don't know, Jeffrey Katzenberg is a name we throw around all the time. That's the guy who founded DreamWorks Studios. Okay, so if you guys have ever seen Shrek the movie, right? Like, it's a lot of money, and I think that Cenk thought that he was going to be able to ride this into the next wave, and so what they did was they reached out to shows like The Humanist Report. Great content creator. Love Mike. He's always been fantastic to us. They reached out to people like Lance from the Surfs. They reached out to people like Kyle Kalinske. I know Mike and Kyle for sure were a part of that TYT network of shows, right? And we found out from Sam, hey, they're not really doing anything for you under that network. They're optimizing your content. They're, basically you're adding Cenk credibility. You're making Cenk look like a mafia boss when he really isn't one. And I think that that's a big part of what it all comes down to. Back then, you would probably bite your tongue if you thought that Cenk had like a boneheaded boomer take, right? And for a long time, people did. I mean, people forget, Gavin and I have been at this shit probably a little longer than, most people realize. In 2020, we popped off the map and we were like, yo, we think this Katzenberg money is fucked up. Like, we got this guy Robbie Yeager on here. We're like, they are really misrepresenting how they're funding this show. They're asking for member donations when behind them they have capital investment. They have big tier capital investment. And I was actually working for a VC locally at the time, so I was really thinking about that. I was like, yo, if I was like using this money and channeling it into a news organization, would I consider that news organization independent? Fuck no, because I would know that my boss would be able to squash whatever the fuck he wanted, because he would turn off the faucet that would fund that. Like, that's just how the VC world works. You have a bunch of clinical cold bastards that only care about ones and zeros and dollars and cents. And those are the people that Cenk decided to get into bed with, right? And those people think exactly like how Cenk thinks, which is that, if you're not showing loyalty to me, if you're not showing fealty to me, then I'm going to cut you off. And I just think it was like the chain of command going down. You know what I mean?
I will amend what I just said, actually, speaking of the one person who does have sway and has actually preyed upon specifically pundits, podcasters from the so-called left, and that is Peter Thiel, right? We know that he has put money behind. I'm sorry?
Oh, he funded the takedown of Gawker, man. I mean, he literally bankrolled Hulk Hogan to be able to destroy that news outlet.
Well, doesn't he also support like a number of like so-called left wing, but they're not really, kind of like trad cath, like kind of dirtbag like podcasts like Red Scare, like they were all kind of like in bed with him. In part, they had dabbled with Thiel. I don't want to speak out of turn.
I'm not surprised that they're connected in some way. I'm not.
But they absolutely. There's been a coalescing between Thiel and funding the kind of like, again, like trad cath, but like dirt baggy left, but like not,
For
you know,
sure.
and so I actually, now I'm sort of amending. The only thing I could imagine is like, hey, Teal gives you this infusion of cash. What is his investment currently in Polymarket? I mean, I'm not even clear on that. Maybe he was there in the beginning. And then it's like, maybe give a little more hat tip to X, Y, and Z, you know, on these issues, steer folks. And it's like, okay, we're kind of already doing that sometimes, so it's all good. Like, that's the only thing. But I think it's really important to remember that much of the right wing pivot can go unnoticed by the average TYT viewer because where it really shows its head is on Twitter and is on the other shows that they do. So that's why I said, I mean, I think it improperly said code switching. It's not obviously code switching, but it is a speaking out of both sides of your mouth. Like, I'm going to tell one person one story and the
Yeah.
other person a different story. And it is
Present differently depending on who you think the audience is.
exactly. And so you could watch TYT now and you're like, oh, they're covering Trump great. They're doing this great. But then on Twitter or on Substack or on like a podcast, you're like, wait a minute, why are you saying all these things about how, you know, Josh Hawley's a real populist and people on the left
Yeah.
don't take a win? And you're
They
like,
said Josh Hawley is a real.
that's what Cenk told me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
My
what
gosh.
And just to throw this out there for everyone, so Peter Thiel and Vitalik Buterin, who, if you don't know who that is, he is the guy that came up with Ethereum, the like alternative to Bitcoin. Those were the two leaders in the first funding round for Polymarket, and they gave it $70 million. And it looks like Peter Thiel's venture capital firm Founders Fund is the leading bankroller of Polymarket. So it's definitely a lot of overlap there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey Katzenberg is
So
also an
Founders Fund is
anti-homeless
terrible.
activist.
Wait, say that again?
Oh, I just said Katzenberg, too, the original guy that took money from, is also a huge anti-homeless activist, and it's around the time they took that money that pivot began, too. So, you know, just another piece of sort of anecdotal.
I truly think that's what it is. Honestly, I'm like, I feel like, listen, the way I see it is this, right? Like, in terms of like my day-to-day work, it's like I work with a lot of different like organizations and stuff that I try to like help with messaging and try to get, you know, help attract attention to the movements and things you work. Like an example of that is like Unlock the Box, right? Like Unlock the Box, they do a lot of work against solitary confinement, and there are people that I'm always like working with, and I will try, they tell me about something and I'll try to like incorporate that, you know what I mean? Think about that messaging and what I do. And to me, I see TYT as doing that for the right. Like, to me, that seems as though it's clearly happening. Like, I will and that's why I think maybe it seems clearer to me all along, because I've always seen like the way I kind of do a lot of my like political content is in conjunction with like these movements I work with on the ground, right? Like, there's no change of money or anything like that. It's just like, oh, I want to do these things. I have a platform. I realize that I know all these like local organizers. I know these people working in these movements. So, oh, you're working on solitary confinement. Like in my Greg Abbott video, Krish Gundu is in my video. She's someone who works with the Texas Jail Projects. It's like, okay, I know you. I have access to this information. So I'll talk to these different organizers and be like, what's important to y'all this year? Like, what are we working on? What do we care about? And I'll try to see how I can have those like goals in mind in my content this year. And I think that the TYT does that for the right with a check. Because to me, that's the only, and I know a lot of people do that. And that's why I think that's the only thing that makes sense, that you could see people doing something that's so unsuccessful in the metrics we measure by and is alienating everybody, but they fucking keep tripling down on it. I think there's a level of your views, but I also think it's a level of, I think when you're money focused, which I'm not even saying that to be like to just make an aspersion about them. That seems very, and when I've listened to all like Anna Kasparian's complaints and Cenk's complaints in the last like few years, it seems very, very clear that at least she is very upset about what she perceives as like success that they should have earned, more money that they should be making. Like, every time she brings up Hassan, it's this, look how much fucking money these people are making and I'm not making this money. Like, this is undeserved in some way. So I think when that's your focus and you like that becomes your agenda, I think that can, and you feel like this is what's necessary to chase that money, you can end up becoming so upset at what you see is preventing you from that success. And I think there's a lot of that wrapped up in how they feel about the left. I also, to Cenk's, I don't know if this is I don't know if there's a compliment or credit. I just think this is a fact. I think this is how he ends up in this position. Cenk seems, to his credit, incredibly loyal to Anna Kasparian. If no one else, incredibly loyal to Anna, because like I've watched all the Vanguard videos too, right? Like, I keep up on all the drama, and what it seemed like to me is I feel like I could see a bunch of different instances where Cenk seems as fed up as everybody else by what, like, when Anna first started like, you know, moving like this. I could see a bunch of different instances where you could tell he's like, Jesus fucking Christ, but like that's obviously his homie, and it's like, Like no matter what, like every time she keeps like it seems like every time she starts something but she didn't like somebody. Like before Cenk went on Francesca's, and I see when Cenk got real anti-Francesca, when Anna got real openly anti-Francesca, like on there, it was like,
Well, who do you think produced the whole video about me? Who
Yeah.
do you think produced that? That was Anna. That was not Cenk.
100%.
Cenk wouldn't
yes.
do. Cenk was rising above it. He was rising above it. He tweeted back at me, but he wasn't going to stoop to that level. I'm a contractor. What are you going to do, right? He privately texted me. He was like, "Why do you want to go on this network if you think, if you think it's so awful if we're, if we're fascists or whatever?" And I think I didn't say this, but I was like, think of me as the resistance, and that's sort of how I felt about it. But no, that was a 100% Anna produced production. And I will say this, and I've told the guys this before, and this is my analysis. Cenk spent a lot of years ignoring Anna and not letting her have her say, not letting her be involved in decision making at TYT, even though she made up so much of the reason that it was successful. She presents the news. She's the one who's packaging everything. She's working her ass off every single day, okay? And eventually it broke through to him and he gave her more editorial reins. Sadly, the Black Lives Matter uprising also happened, and so did COVID, and a lot of people became real Karens. And so he feels indebted to her because of the years that she was iced out of decision making. I don't know if she has a big role now, but that is why there is loyalty. And she has convinced him, I mean, truly on some like poison pill, like just sort of like real hypnosis, that like everybody's against him. He's exactly like her. The left's never gonna learn this and this and that. Give up on that. Like there's a lot of like
They're like a
weird,
toxic brother and sister, I feel like.
totally.
And on some level, I
They're
kind of
Thelma and
respect
Louise,
it.
man. And
I
what?
do. I think it's so funny. Like Cenk and Anna, I think Cenk and Anna, as far as people in this world who don't like me and have said negative things about me, I think I feel least like I like them the most of people who talk shit about me, in the sense that I don't fuck with you, but I still like appreciate your level of toxic duo crazy. And I think I like I appreciate the loyalty of the frustration of like, what is this bitch talking about? And she's sinking the ship, but I'm gonna go down with my ship with my bitch. Like that's clear. Like it just comes across so deep. And I'm like, you know what? If you're not gonna be loyal or give a flying fuck about anything else, and this movement, these marginalized groups, these progressive values, at least Cenk fuck with Anna the long way.
Hang on, let me just say though, before the election, it was heading in a different direction.
Yeah.
Before the election, and I it was very clear that Anna and Cenk were going to have some sort of
Yeah, it seemed that way
breakup
too.
between the two of them. When I
Interesting.
say that the election broke his brain, I mean it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you spend all this time being like, my side is right, and then your side loses, and you feel a big way about having to like sit and think. You want to be with the powerful people. You want to do what everyone else is doing now. You want to do what Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough are doing, what other mainstream media outlets are doing. You want to be next to power. You don't want to look like a loser, and you don't want to have been caught out having been wrong. Like the rest of us have to sit there and be caught out because, of course, we're, used to losing with these Democrats. But no, instead, he pivoted. And so then I was like, uh-oh, now we're in for some real crazy Thelma and Louise shit because they're now stuck together. But I do think it will come from more and more people, right? Emma Vigeland, former TYT. Ben Dixon, former TYT. Me, like
Mondale.
Benny, Mondale. And I just want to say, I'm not going to name their names, but you know who they are. If you've seen specifically women of color and specifically Black women ever on TYT Network over the years, you've not seen them recently. You know who they are. You haven't seen them. And it is for the same reasons, but they are just not going public, talking about it, don't care, don't want the smoke, whatever. But I know, like firsthand on the back end, that is why they've left.
Yeah.
And so, it's going to come for them eventually. The two of them, it's going to happen. Because you can't be that toxic to everybody else and not have it fester. Who's going to be next? Is it going to be JR? Is it going to be Dr. Richie? Is it going to be John? And like, it's just like, I mean, right? Because it can only continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have just cue the Britney Spears music. I'm addicted to you. I should know. I should talk.
Exactly.
No, it isn't. They are doing like
I don't know.
evidence and doing is crazy. Like this desire, it's so insane, right? Because like, I mean, obviously it happens every election season. Like, I'm not surprised. You always see these people willing to go like, oh, okay, the right one, let me go embrace the right, let me go in like backpedal. But in this particular instant, I'm like, we are quite literally like not no, and I don't give a fuck about anybody on the internet who loves to pretend or downplay with Trump and the Republican administration. They downplayed it during the election, they downplay it now. And I'm saying we are watching the dismantling of democracy. It has never been more unsafe. Like I like as an immigrant who does not feel safe to travel domestically, let alone abroad. Like
Oh.
it is so bad, and I think that's what makes it so extra egregious to see
Yes.
these people. Like I'm not confident we're having another free and fair. I do not see Donald Trump just leaving office. I don't see like I to me, I truly feel like it's a totalitarian regime. And as soon as you start looking at it through the eyes of analyzing it as authoritarianism is what's happening, and that's what I thought was gonna happen, that makes it so sick. Like it's a different level of, oh, let me like pandering to white supremacists, trying to be buddy buddy with literal white fucking supremacists, like people who if they had it their way, they'll get rid of anybody they could deem other out of here, and all you have is let's go have a. I was
Let's have
listening,
a beer,
have a
which is
beer
an
together.
admission.
People
That's an
you
admission
know that you consider progressives is like, oh fuck you, don't ever be on
Yeah.
my network again, never fucking talk to me, you radical nut bitch. But the supremacists, they're like, woo, let's have a beer, we gotta kick it. Don't let these little issues divide us, baby. We friends.
It's an admission. It's an admission that it's all of a show,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's the same. Someone had an interaction with, was it what's his name, Bill? Oh God, I'm so sorry. The far right. Anyway, but like he's just like,
Bill Maher.
no, not
Oh.
Bill Maher, but it wanted to come from Fox News for forever.
Bill O'Reilly?
Bill O'Reilly. Thank you. Someone had an
Throwback.
interaction with Bill O'Reilly that was like, they were like taking a smoke about, and it's like, this is all like, we're just doing this for the show, right?
Yeah.
It's all, I don't hate you or immigrants, whatever. And it was like a moment that kind of descended on this person, was like, oh man, like this is all just a joke for them. This is
Oh,
all
I
just
did knew that.
play acting. Yeah. And that's what Cenk wants to say is like, at the end of the day, even if we disagree about whether we should be locking up students for their speech or holding a Palestinian flag, we can have a beer. And it's like,
Because
no, we absolutely cannot.
And they can have a beer. The reason why he feels like he can have a beer with the right, but he can't have a beer with the left is because they don't give a shit on their side. The reason why people don't talk, like every time everybody's always trying to applaud the right, like they're so good at uniting and coalition building and all this, but I'm like, it's because they don't give a shit. It's everything is under an umbrella of white supremacy and capitalism, and as long as it gets like the means always achieve the ends to them, so they don't care. There isn't a real substantive, and I know this. Like people have an example, Robbie on Rising, right? Like Robbie and I, every single time you ever seen Robbie and us on there, we are debating, we are fighting. But Robbie don't, in real life, the minute that's done, Robbie doesn't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like he does not. He's real pleasant to you in real life because he doesn't give a fuck. But meanwhile, like the left, like we feel that way. If I sit up with you, if we go talk, and you as somebody who's supposed to be a progressive like me start spewing a bunch of anti shit that literally will destroy the lives of they're designed to get rid of people. Like if what I know you on your platform of millions are advocating to basically increase the criminalization of Black people, of homeless people, of immigrants, I'm not going to like you. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're like that's going to be a real conflict if you just afterwards like expect it to just be nothing. And that's what Cenk wants it to be. And it can be that on the right. The right doesn't care. They don't care once the camera's down. They don't give a shit that you disagree with them. They don't care because they don't care about any of it. They don't care about these people. They don't care about the real, like it's I used to this racist white guy I went to law school, used to call it what do you used to call it? An intellectual exercise.
Yeah.
That's how they see it, to like rile you up and upset you and start spewing bigotry for fun while you getting upset is an intellectual exercise for them. Meanwhile, the people on the left are in community with these people, like are answerable to people who feel, and that's the thing, that's the problem that he really has. His problem he has is that he considers you like, oh, you're supposed to be my friend or somebody I work with. Like you shouldn't actually care so much about these things and these values that you are really having a problem with what I'm doing. Like my problem is that you truly care about it and you are bringing attention to something fucked up I'm doing.
And in the interview that I did with him, and I got to jump after this, but in that interview, it was really clear because when I said, I was trying to make the point that like Chinese people are being targeted, right? People who don't have their papers. And he kind of scoffed at me. First of all, he scoffed that, oh, you think there's going to be detention centers? And there are now. But then I mentioned that, Chinese people. And I was like, I'm Chinese, like this part. But he laughed at that because precisely to Olay's point. He's like, no, you and I are safe from all this.
Yes.
It's not about us. Like, we're in a protected, like, come on, you know? And these other people, we don't care about them, really. What do
That's
you mean?
exactly it.
And so that is the, like, don't sit around and protect. And at no point did I ever say, I am afraid of being rounded up. I never claimed that. But, like, he wanted to make it look like I was trying to make myself a victim. And it's a little bit of a, like, who are
They-
we talking? This is all the
and the thing-
undesirables who are going to get rounded up.
They love to do that. There were people doing that to me during the election. So I'm like, and I've said this during the whole time. Like, I am very concerned for myself as a Black woman immigrant that is well known for being politically outspoken. I am fucking nervous about that. And there were so many people who like wanted to make a mockery of that, like make you out to be like, paint you out to suddenly be like, they were doing that, but not even in a way to be like, oh, you and me. It's like, oh, you are the petite bourgeois immigrants. Like, oh, it's not coming for you. Like, oh, you're not the immigrants to matter. Only these kinds of immigrants matter.
Totally. That's exactly it. It's exactly it. I have to go, but this is the best.
No, it is okay.
Love
This has been beautiful. Thank you
it's
so
been
much,
awesome.
Francesca, for coming on Olay and Chill. Thank you for coming back, my Vanguard. And congratulations. This is my first time seeing y'all to tell you congratulations on 100,000.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
I was so excited for you. I saw it and I was like, oh, yay.
Olay, you specifically have been a real, comrade of ours for a while. It's so awesome, lately to connect with you more, Francesca, and collaborate a little bit. It's been so awesome sharing.
I
some
love y'all.
conversations.
Y'all are my babies. Every time anybody come
Also-
for y'all, they be like, I'm unsure about them Vanguard. Those are my babies. Like,
Oh, you guys are great.
Shout
Thank
out to
y'all,
Francesca,
everybody.
almost to 200,000 subscribers. Also,
Dude.
2,000
Oh,
more.
I mean, the real thing is that it backfired heartily on them. They could have let me just go by quietly,
Yup.
I'm thinking that video did beautiful.
And at this point, I'm near 200,000, and Vanguard have always been there and supported me. And thank you guys. And I'm going to be tuning into you tomorrow.
Hey everybody, quick little announcement. Your girl was nominated for a Webby Award, okay? They nominated me in social impact for all of my work on Illuminati and the Illuminati-verse, and I would love it if you voted for me. I have the link in the description below, so if you could just drop what you're doing right quick and vote for your girl, I would appreciate that.